All right, let's dive in today. We're exploring the life of Abraham Lincoln. And judging by this stack of sources, we're going beyond the typical biography, right?
That's right, yeah. I'm really interested in digging into some of the lesser-known aspects of his life and work.
Well, you've definitely brought the goods. We've got excerpts from Abraham Lincoln by Nicolay and Hay,
A classic.
definitely. But you've also got like primary documents, letters, speeches. I even saw some personal notes in there. You weren't kidding about going deep.
You know, it's one thing to read about history, but to actually engage with these primary sources, these remnants of the past, it's incredible. It just adds a whole new dimension.
Okay, so let's start unpacking this. One thing that jumped out at me just skimming through the book was this idea of Lincoln's mind as a piece of steel.
Oh, I love that. That's such a powerful image.
Right, and it's talking about his memory, like this incredibly sharp, tenacious memory.
Yeah, and it speaks to his incredible discipline. You know, Lincoln was largely self-educated. He was a voracious reader, but he didn't just absorb information, he wrestles with it.
He really analyzed everything, didn't he? I mean, that makes sense. You don't become a masterful speaker, a writer who can craft something as enduring as the Gettysburg Address without some serious mental horsepower.
Absolutely. He honed his mind like a tool.
But here's something I did not expect. Ready for this? The man had a patent.
Wait, what?
Seriously, like a real inventor.
You're kidding? I have to admit, that's a side of Lincoln I haven't fully explored. What did he invent?
So, from what I gathered, he designed this whole system for lifting boats over river shoals.
Wow. You know, it makes perfect sense, though, right?
Yeah.
Think about his early life, navigating those rivers. It was a practical challenge that he tackled head on.
It's like that problem-solving instinct, that practicality, it just became a core part of who he was.
Absolutely. And you can see how those early experiences shaped his approach to the immense challenges he would face later in life.
From navigating rivers to navigating a nation through a civil war, which, speaking of, you included a ton about the Lincoln-Douglas debates.
I did. Those debates, I mean, talk about a masterclass in political discourse.
Yeah.
They're just riveting.
I agree. And Nicolay and Hay, they actually lament the loss of that format in their book. Like, imagine today's politicians going toe-to-toe like that for hours, totally unscripted.
Right. It's a different world now.
Totally. Those debates, they forced a level of, like, intellectual rigor and honesty that feels, I don't know, kind of quaint now.
Well, and think about the public education aspect. These were complex issues. Slavery, states' rights, the very future of the nation.
And people were just captivated by it. The debates were like major public events. Newspapers were printing transcripts. People were traveling for miles to hear them.
They were shaping national opinion. I mean, think about it. This wasn't just some local Illinois thing. This was the national stage, and Lincoln was more than ready for it.
Yeah, and he definitely held his own against Douglas, who was a political heavyweight at the time.
Absolutely. And those debates, they were a crucial turning point for Lincoln, raising his national profile and solidifying his reputation as a powerful voice against slavery.
Talk about a star on the rise. And that brings us to a moment that seems particularly important to you, judging by what you flagged, the Cooper Union Address. There's even some personal correspondence in here about it.
Oh, yeah, the Cooper Union Address. That speech, in many ways, launched Lincoln onto the national stage.
It's true. It's like before that, he's this regional figure, right?
Yeah.
Known mostly in the West.
Exactly. A lot of folks in the East, they probably thought, who is this lanky lawyer from Illinois?
Likely was
Um,
that. What's he gonna tell us?
And then, bam! He delivers this incredibly powerful, meticulously researched address on the issue of slavery, and it just blows everyone away.
Seriously. And you even included a letter from his son, Robert, talking about the aftermath.
Oh, it's amazing. He talks about how the speech just electrified the nation, how it sparked an unplanned New England speaking tour, all because people were just blown away by Lincoln's intellect and presence.
It wasn't just what he said, but how he said it. You can tell just from reading the text that he had this way with words, this ability to command attention, to move people with the power of his language.
Absolutely. And you know what's really fascinating? The people who organized the event, they seemed to sense that something remarkable was about to happen.
Really?
Yeah. You included their preface to the address, and it's clear that they saw in Lincoln something truly special, someone with the potential to change the course of history. They basically say, this guy, he's got something, listen to him.
And they were right. It's like they could feel it, that this was a pivotal moment.
Exactly. Lincoln stepped onto that stage, and honestly, the rest is history.
It really is remarkable when you think about it. But we've talked about the lawyer, the debater, the orator. There's another side of Lincoln you highlighted. It's his humor.
Oh, absolutely. You
Yeah.
can't talk about Lincoln without talking about his humor.
Right. But it's not just about telling jokes, is it? From what I've read, it seems like his humor was, I don't know, more nuanced.
Oh, definitely. Lincoln's humor, it was grounded in this really clear-eyed view of the world, even in the darkest of times. He could see the irony, the absurdity.
And he wasn't afraid to use it.
Exactly. He would use humor to disarm people, to make them laugh, but also to make them think.
Disarm and provoke, kind of a fascinating combination.
It really is. And he was a master of it.
Yeah.
You know, there's that famous story about when someone compared him to King Charles, during the English Civil War, negotiating with the Cromwellians.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading that.
And Lincoln, without missing a beat, says, "Yes, I believe that is so. It is, however, my memory that King Charles lost his head."
What a comeback.
Right. It's funny, but it's also got that sharp edge to it.
It makes you think twice about challenging him.
Absolutely. And that wit, that ability to find humor, even in the most difficult situations, it must have been invaluable during his presidency.
Especially given everything he was facing. I mean, talk about pressure. It's one thing to debate policy. It's another thing entirely to lead a nation through a civil war.
The weight on his shoulders must have been immense. You included that anecdote about Lincoln and the tightrope walker, Blondin.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. It's such a powerful image. Blondin is walking across Niagara Falls on a tightrope. And Lincoln says he feels like the man holding that rope.
Wow. Just thinking about the responsibility.
Right. He's carrying the weight of the nation's fate with every step. It's just this incredibly vivid illustration of the pressure he was under. And yet, even then, he never seemed to lose his composure or his sense of humor. Like that time when a delegation of ministers came to him, urging him to issue the Emancipation Proclamation.
Oh, I love this story. What does he say? Remind me.
So they're telling him, "Mr. President, God wants you to issue the proclamation." And Lincoln, in his typical way, he just looks at them and says, "Is it not odd that the only channel he could send it by was that roundabout route through the wicked city of Chicago?"
Only Lincoln. It's funny, but it's also...
It makes you think, right?
Exactly. It's like he's challenging them and us to think about the complexities of faith, of divine intervention.
It's like he's saying, if this is really God's will, don't you think he would have found a more direct way to let me know?
And let's not forget, he's saying this while shouldering the immense responsibility of leading a nation through a war.
It's really incredible. For someone who faced so much criticism, so much pressure, Lincoln always seemed to maintain this incredible sense of perspective.
And humility. He never claimed to have all the answers.
Which, in a way, made him an even more effective leader.
Definitely, because that allowed him to listen, to learn from others, and to adapt to the ever-changing circumstances of the war.
It's fascinating to think about how Lincoln used humor in those really high-stakes situations. It seems almost counterintuitive, doesn't it, to use humor when dealing with such serious matters?
It does, but I think that speaks to his genius as a communicator. He understood that humor could be a powerful tool, not just to disarm, but also to connect with people on a human level.
And it's not like he was cracking jokes during cabinet meetings. It was always purposeful, always tied to a deeper point he was trying to make.
Exactly. It wasn't about being flippant. It was about highlighting the absurdity of a situation or using wit to expose hypocrisy, to get people thinking in new ways.
You included a great example of that. It's that story about when he was criticized for his evolving views on slavery.
Oh, right. Someone accused him of being inconsistent. And Lincoln, he just smiled and said something like, "Well, if I'm wrong now, at least I've had the sense to change my mind. What do you do when you're wrong?"
Classic Lincoln. Okay, but let's talk about a different kind of pressure now. The pressure of leading a nation through one of its darkest chapters, the Civil War. You highlighted just how divided the country was at that time.
It was a nation on the brink, families torn apart, brother fighting against brother. It was a truly tumultuous time.
And you've got excerpts here from letters written by everyday citizens, soldiers on both sides of the conflict. You can feel the anguish, the fear, the uncertainty.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that Lincoln wasn't just dealing with abstract political challenges. He was dealing with the very real human cost of war.
And yet, even amidst all that, he never seemed to lose sight of the need for unity, for healing.
That's what I find so remarkable about him. He could hold those two seemingly contradictory ideas in his head at the same time. The necessity of fighting for what he believed in, but also the deep desire for peace, for reconciliation.
And nowhere is that more evident than in his second inaugural address.
Oh, that speech. It's just breathtaking.
It's so powerful, especially when you think about the context. The war is almost over, victory is in sight. But instead of triumphalism, he offers this incredibly moving call for unity, for forgiveness.
With malice toward none, with charity for all. Those words, they still resonate today, don't they?
They really do. They remind us that true leadership isn't about conquest. It's about building bridges, about healing divisions.
And about recognizing our shared humanity, even, and perhaps especially, in the face of deep disagreement.
It's a powerful message, and one that feels incredibly relevant today as we grapple with our own divisions, our own challenges. But as we start to wrap up our deep dive, I have to say, Lincoln's story, it's both inspiring and daunting. Inspiring because he reminds us what's possible when we lead with courage and conviction. But daunting because it makes you wonder, are there leaders like that today?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's one that each of us has to answer for ourselves. But I think Lincoln's legacy challenges us to look for those qualities, not just in our leaders, but in ourselves.
To ask ourselves, what can we do, each and every one of us, to bridge divides, to stand up for what's right, to build a more just and equitable world?
Because that's how we honor Lincoln's legacy, not just by studying the past, but by using it to inspire us, to guide us as we navigate the challenges of the present and build a better future.
It's been quite a journey exploring the life and legacy of Abraham Lincoln. Hopefully you, the listener, are walking away with a deeper understanding of this complex and influential figure. But even more than that, I hope you're walking away inspired. Inspired to think about your own role in shaping a better future. Because in the end, that's what Lincoln's story is all about. The power of one person to make a difference in the world. At the end of this podcast, please share your thoughts on the book. And if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.